here with Julie Doherty and Helen Venroose-Brydon from one of our chamber members, the Plastic Bottle Company. We've invited them on the podcast today to talk about the work they do supplying businesses with packaging around the country. And we'll also discuss some of the environmental concerns surrounding plastic and how the industry is working to become more sustainable. So welcome to the podcast, both. Julie, can you just start off by giving a bit of background on the company? What exactly is the work you do?
Well, thank you for inviting us today, Joe. Me and Helen were delighted to take part. So the Plastic Bottle Company does exactly what it says in the name. We supply empty plastic packaging, whether that be jars or bottles, and the components that go with them, like trigger sprays, various different types of caps, etc., to a variety of different businesses. So it's quite eclectic, really. It could be anything from the NHS, veterinary, dentistry, down to car detailing, beauty, vaping. The list goes on and on. Holy water. It's there's no 2 days in our industry they're ever the same. So we started in 2011 in the offices that we are now. We've been slowly, sort of building the business. And originally it was my husband and I that were running the business. Glenn, he retired in 2018. He had a health issue. So we have got our daughter, Olivia, as part of the team. And we're in the succession planning section at the moment. And Helen here is her mentor and ops manager, and she will eventually help Olivia run the business when I eventually step down.
So you work with a lot of small businesses. How do you advise them to make sure they get the correct product and at the right price and at the best lead time?
Yeah, okay. So we work with a lot of eclectic businesses, as Julie said. So it's quite diverse, the people that contact us. And generally, they have an idea in the mind of what it is that they're wanting. And not always, but sometimes that just doesn't match with what it can actually happen for their industry. So we need to guide them with realistic expectations of what would work for their product. So there's a lot of information required, and there's a lot of building relationships between us to support them, especially as a new start business. So we operate a tailored to you program, which basically allows us to, it could be a product that we already have on the website, it could be a sourced product specifically for that customer, and we would work with that customer to for their requirements for over a certain amount of time, normally a year, and then we would get them the best price for that, so that they are not paying out for very small orders, although they can order it that way. But of course, then the price point per unit is higher. So we get them a lower price point by getting a larger amount, but they can still just call off their order as and when they need it. And of course, that also means that they have storage as well, which means they don't have a lead time. And what we found with most businesses is the issue around the lead time, because some products take a long time to produce. It can be well into the months. It depends where they're being transported from, of course, as well. And it's really realizing that customer's expectations, but having the product on hand for them. So when they wake up one morning and think, I'm going to run out of this, they can just pick the phone up and then we can have it with them the next day.
Can you talk a bit about the different sectors that you work with? And I gather, Helen, you've had some quite interesting requests.
Yeah, so both Julie and I have a favourite here. So my best one was jars that were being sourced, and it was for lip gloss for horses. And it is actually a thing. I even checked it again today before this podcast. They do sell lip gloss for horses. So there you go. That was my favourite one. I actually thought I'd misheard when I was talking to that lady on the phone. But it is a thing in the equestrian business. So that's my one.
So we do get a lot of requests from churches, sort of very different denominations. And mine was for a Buddhist sort of facility, and they wanted jars, but weren't sure how many they wanted. So of course I asked them, did they mind telling me what it was for? And it was for the ashes of their leader who had passed away, and they wanted to give every member of the congregation a portion of his ashes. And I was my first thoughts was, oh my God, how tall was he? And then it was kind of like, calm down a bit, and it was, how many do you have in your congregation on an average? So we just made sure they had enough jars to cover the congregation, plus the extras that might come, because it was a special occasion, as it were. So yeah, it's amazing. We get asked for holy water a lot, bottles for that, and we did. My other one is a mass anointing in the football park in Ireland, where there was 10 priests who had bottles that had to fit neatly into their palm, while he anointed thousands of people that were coming up to do it. So there are two for me there that sort of stand out.
Wow. I'm guessing that in these situations, they must want some kind of specific receptacle. I mean, you probably just don't want like any old Tupperware for the the leader or whoever it may be. Do you have to kind of provide quite like a little urns or something? I don't know. How does it work?
It was actually, like, they were going back to the lip balm theme. They needed small jars because obviously there was going to be so many of them, and it was jars that are considered either lip balm jars or jars that are people give samples out in. So they were like a little tiny 5 ml jar, but clear so that the ashes could be seen inside them. So yeah, samples are sent and they okay them, and then they get the stock, and then you just think, well, there won't be anything more unusual than that. And then horse lip balm comes along, and so we're always ready to expect the unexpected.
Very good. So kind of getting on to the sort of second topic of our discussion today, which is around the environmental impact of plastic. And there seems to be a lot of confusion out there about what material is best to use to package things. How does plastic compare to the plastic alternatives that we see, like the bamboo and that sort of thing, in terms of impact on the environment?
Okay, so we could talk about this one for hours. So basically, plastic gets a really bad reputation from environmentalists, and obviously the bashing that goes on about plastics out there, when really there's only very limited amount of information. There has been studies been done. A recent one in 2020 was at the University of Southampton, and that was all about glass versus plastic. And the conclusion was that glass bottles harm the environment more than plastic bottles due to lots of different variations. But you've got the weight involved in glass, the fact that it needs more energy for transportation. You've got breakages. You've got sourcing of the materials for glass as well. The water needed, 1.39 gallons of water is used to make one single glass bottle, which people again don't realise. And plastic takes 450 years to decompose in the environment, which sounds like an awful lot until you compare it to glass, which takes 1 million years. So all of these are facts that are out there that people actually don't necessarily understand. And while there is a place for glass, there's a place for every type of packaging out there. We try to, what's the word? Not educate, what's the word?
Knowledge
share. Yeah, it sounds kinder, but we try and do this with as many people as possible so that they understand what is the best choice for them, because it's not always what people think it is. And there's so many different anomalies to that. You mentioned bamboo. Bamboo toothbrushes are bound together with plastics. Stretch jeans are bound together with plastic. That's what gives it the stretch. Bamboo cups are bound together with plastic. So there is a space for everything in the packaging industry. the issue is how it is disposed at the end of life. That's the issue.
Yeah, and we have a supplier that manufacturer that's UK based that we use, and they did a life cycle analysis that was done independently, and it was done on a 300 ml bottle, and HDPE plastic, so that's high density polyethylene plastic, actually came top in the areas that they look, the benchmarks that they're looking at was greenhouse gas emissions, non-renewable energy, freshwater consumption in ecosphere, and also land use. And HGP come in top of all of those, except for the land use, where it came in second. The second best performer was PET, so polyethylene plastic. Glass was ranked one of the second highest sort of on poor quality, and aluminium was the worst. So again, that was independently done, to show again that, you know, the industry does care, and we do look at what we're doing, and looking at the best possible options that there are out there.
You spoke there about the issue kind of being like how plastic is disposed of. So what is the infrastructure like in the UK? Is the plastic disposed of in a sustainable way? Is some of it shipped abroad? You know, how worried do we have to be about, you know, putting plastic in the recycling? You know, can we be comfortable with that? You know?
Yeah, it's a very tricky one, because there are no two councils doing the same recycling. As you're aware, we're now Furness and Westmoreland Council, previously Barrow Borough Council and South Lately District Council, only 8 miles down the road from each other, recycled in a completely different way. It's still happening, because obviously all these changes have only just happened, but I believe that eventually they're trialling in Ulverston, putting everything together in one big bag. What that means, though, is that there are certain plastics that can't be identified when it's going through, like the recycling plants, black being one of them. So our industry are now trying to produce caps in black that have near-infrared technology, so that it will be spotted and it can be separated properly. But then you're reliant on the councils having that facility. So although the industry are doing everything they can to identify everything to be recycled, the infrastructure's not there. No two councils are doing the same thing. One of the biggest places for recycling is the Netherlands, but obviously, you know, we're not with Brexit, we're not part of the EU now, so I don't know whether that's still cost effective. And China stopped taking all of the recycling quite at least 2 years ago, I think it was. So I think more goes into landfill than people realise. You know, we very much advocate putting everything, washing it, putting it in the right bins, etc. But it's whether the infrastructure where you live is working.
And that goes for, you know, plastics and glass recycling as well. So I was reading something today about the glass rate of recycling on glass is an average of 30%, whereas in places like Switzerland and Germany, it's 90%. So it's a huge difference.
Yeah, in some countries in Europe, with bottles and stuff, they don't kind of melt them down and do it that way. They just clean them and reuse them. It seems to be some differences in how the recycling works.
Yeah. As a child, I remember getting the milk on the doorstep, and you put the bottles back out again, and you knew that they went to a plant and they were washed properly and reused. But yeah, you know, if no council's doing the same thing, we're on a hiding to nowhere before we even start, really.
And then I suppose there are so many other benefits with plastic. In that, you know, glass is heavy, and if you're going to be shipping products in glass, it's breakable, and you know, the plastic sort of before the bad press that plastic got, you know, some of it rightfully so, you know, it was heralded as like this wonder material, because there are so many benefits. I suppose how humans have managed it hasn't always been great, but
exactly that.
Can you just talk about that?
So for instance, when we were first in lockdown, and we needed sanitizer, we couldn't get sanitizer. We couldn't get bottles to places that were making sanitizer fast enough. They couldn't be made fast enough, and of course we were all having to do the restrictions like stay a metre apart and that kind of thing. And actually we were getting quite a bit of abuse by not being able to send bottles out. But then what we were finding was that people were given in a workplace, for instance, their own personal bottle to refill sanitizer with, but at the end of using their bottle, they threw it away and just expected to get a new one. So the mindset wasn't there in that instance. So it's behaviours that need to change. But we've gone from being the saviour, because sanitizer was being shipped out at a massive rate, and we made it. We only sold to councils and care homes, funeral homes, that kind of anywhere that needed sanitizer bottles as a priority over anybody else. And then as soon as lockdown was over and nobody has to use sanitizer, we're all bad again. And that's quite frustrating, because we were a saviour and now we're back to being bad again.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on now, this material that you stock is called prevented ocean plastic. Can you talk a bit about that? We're getting on now to talk about kind of how the industry and how your business is working to become more sustainable.
Prevented ocean plastic is we buy the products again from a UK manufacturer who is signed up to this programme, and you can't just say that you do prevented ocean plastic. You've got to register and use the official logos, that kind of thing, and it's free to do. So any of our customers that are using our bottles that are prevented ocean plastic can register and sign, and therefore use all that logo on the site. And basically it's sourced from countries where there is a lack of waste management infrastructure and collective incentives, and it's usually places like sort of Indonesia, that kind of places. The infrastructure is overwhelmed, the population's overwhelmed with growth and tourism, and there's a significant risk to wildlife, so it's going to affect the ecosystem, and it's got to be found within 30 miles, 50 kilometres, depending on which you like, a distance of an ocean coastline or a body of water that would feed into the ocean. So there's a lot of work that goes into that, and it's quite manual, so it provides income, it provides jobs for these people, but because it's hand sorted, the quality of the bottle is absolutely amazing. So if you were to compare a prevented ocean plastic bottle to a curbside recycled plastic bottle, whereas your curbside recycling is everything that we put in there, so there'll be a tinge of colour, might be amber, might be green, might even be grey. The prevented ocean plastic, they can split all those colours, and the bottles are just virtually clear. They're absolutely, like, you can't tell at all.
And that's a big deal for a lot of our customers, because they might have a brand that is they need to keep uniform, and it needs to be the same for whatever products they're doing all the way through the range. And the issue that they've had previously is the higher the recycled content, which, so they may want to have recycled content, but the higher percentage of recycled content, the more likely they're going to have a colour tinge of some description, because it's recycled plastics and you've no say in what goes in that. Whereas the prevented ocean plastic, you don't get that. So you still get the best of the best. And surprisingly, the price is on par. It's actually not more expensive, which is really key, because I think a lot of people think, because of the work that's gone into this, that would be kind of the elite, and price point wise, it's exactly the same.
And also from a customer and our point of view, they're not affected by the plastic packaging tax. So that's a plus as well, because people don't understand the plastic packaging tax. Anything that doesn't have recycled content in it, or recycled content up to 30%, they will get taxed on it. So it filters down from the manufacturer down to the end user. So having the POP brand is really good for both ourselves and the customer. And we do know that the manufacturer that deal with it, they've actually visited site. So their integrity is such that they don't want to be promoting something without checking it out themselves. So they've been over to Indonesia and they've witnessed it for themselves, how it's all done. And it wasn't a jolly, because we were obviously saying, yeah, we'll go over as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't a jolly, and they said it was damned hard work and it was a fast turnaround. But they said it is exactly what they say on the tin. It is hand sourced. The people there are happy, and they obviously went to see the mountains of recycled stuff that is an offset of the tourism industry. You know, water bottles, that kind of thing. So you know, the integrity of that product is there, and it has been witnessed. So you know, that's why we're happy to promote it as well.
And what does that? How does that product compare in price to a normal non-recycled plastic?
It's in some cases it's actually less in cost, which is interesting, because of course we've had customers that have said, you know, I really want to take recycled plastics, however my brand won't allow that. I'm going to have to use virgin plastic because I need this particular look. But obviously they're then paying plastic packaging tax on that, if it's virgin plastic as well. So by the time they now buy prevented ocean plastics, the price point actually in a lot of cases comes in less than virgin plastic, which is obviously a win-win for everybody.
So the prevented ocean plastic started out as being PET plastic. So that's the clear plastic that you see in a lot of beauty brands, shampoo and water bottles are PET plastic. But they've now introduced HDPE. So that's the more cloudy one, a bit like your Tresemme bottles, that kind of thing. So it's now spreading out to HDPE as well. So the integrity, they're working hard, constantly adding to it to try and make sure everything's as recycled as possible. So it's really exciting, and you know, like, really proud to be part of the family that are promoting it, to be honest. So
Yeah.
they're very strict. They don't let, you know, we did call it POP first before prevented ocean plastic and got told off for it, because POP's like
Slang.
It's slang. So
Yeah.
you know, that's why it's a bit of a mouthful, but there's a reason behind it, because they've worked so hard at this brand. They don't want it, you know, sort of chopping down to POP. They want it to be prevented ocean plastic, because it does what it says on the tin.
Sure. Yeah. I've noticed with like Coke bottles and like drinks bottles now, they sometimes have like a kind of darker tinge to them, and
Yeah.
And they've done a thing where they fix the cap of the bottle onto it, so you take it off and then you can't like lose it. Is that all part of what the industry is doing?
Yes, it is. So obviously, especially when you've got walkers, etc., and you take your cap off and you sit and you have your drink, whatever, it's quite easy to lose the cap. The cap is a different plastic to the bottle, and it used to be that you would have to separate them. So your cap is made of PP plastic, the bottle's made of PET, and you had to split them to be able to recycle them, and people couldn't be bothered. Things have moved on so much now that you can actually keep them together. So A, you don't lose the cap when you're out walking, and B, the whole thing can go in the recycling. It doesn't matter anymore. It's not going to cause a big problem by mixing the two types of plastic, because they're working on that all the time to make it better. The other cap that we're really excited about, that's just started to come through, which I talked about before, is the near infrared one, because I don't know if you've noticed, your milk bottles now are getting a white cap on top, where it used to be green and blue and red. So if that is the case, and that's moving on, maybe they can start going back to those colours to try and make people differentiate between the different types of products they've got. But I understand why it works for now.
That's really interesting. Sort of things that you see and I'm always thinking like, why is that? But yeah, this has been really enlightening. So I suppose to finish, just to kind of round things up, it'd be good if you could just give us a few thoughts on, say there's a business and they're producing a product and they're thinking about using plastic. What material should I use to package my product? What's the kind of advice that you would give them, thinking about their sustainability and those sort of goals?
So they need to just pick the phone up and speak to us, basically, and we'll have a conversation, because it needs to work for their brand and it needs to work for their product. Obviously, it's different types of plastics for different type of, depending what you're putting in it. It would depend on supply. It would depend on what volume they needed. If this is a new business, a lot of the times, this is why we don't have an MOQ, because a lot of the times they need to start, right at the beginning, where maybe they only need 50 of something or 100 of something. And we were actually talking in the warehouse at the beginning of this week, saying that it's so nice to see these customers that came into us when they literally had no idea what they needed and why we were suggesting certain things, until they worked with us on their brand. And they start off with 10 of something, 50 of something, 100 of something, and then an order came through back end of last week, and they needed 10,000 units of this bottle, and we've got all the trading history from when we first sent them a sample. And it's great to see, because these businesses are growing with us as well. So that, after lockdown, obviously there's a lot of cottage industry businesses and homemade businesses, and some of those have just escalated, and people have been able to give up work and make that a career choice. And it's just great to be able to see from literally 5 little samples of something turn into tens of thousands of units, and their business is just flying, and that relationship is really important.
One of the key questions that we ask is about the products that are going into it, what they expect. And it's about managing expectations as well, because they'll say, well, have you seen that bottle that L'Oreal do? Or that jar,
Heinz sauce bottle.
Yeah, Heinz. And well, I want one just like that. So it's managing their expectations, because the likes of Heinz and L'Oreal, they'll own the tool for that product. And so therefore you're never going to get that bottle, because it's just not going to be available. So you have to manage your expectations in that respect. But also they've got an idea of something in their head, and so you have to find out what the products are going into it, because some plastics react to citrus bases. It attacks the plastic, so you may have to sort of guide them in a direction that they weren't intending on being on, because actually that's not going to suit your bottle. Acetone, for instance, if in PET, starts to fracture and you can see it ballooning and it looks like it's ready to pop. Looks beautiful in the bottle, but actually it's really not the right kind of plastic for it. So sometimes we're educating each other, because sometimes they tell us things about their product that we think, oh, we never knew that. But then we just educate them by saying, you're not going to be able to put it into that bottle, or that cap's not going to be suitable, or you're telling them of an alternative all the time. So there's a lot of to-ing and fro-ing that can go on. It's like all things. It's almost like you're working with somebody in a development stage, to try to guide them with the right things. And eventually we get there, and they recommend us to friends, that kind of thing. So it's always a good journey, and it's always nice to hear nice feedback like Trustpilot or Google or whatever. That's all nice to hear, but one of the best ones is when they've been recommended by a friend, because word of mouth is priceless.
Definitely. So how should a business get in touch with you if they want to find out more about the best way to package their product?
Well, if you're local, call for a coffee, because the kettle's always on. Or you can go onto the website. We have a facility called Pure Chat, where you can just ask questions, and then one of us will give you a call back. or just pick up the phone. There's always somebody around to help and advise.
So the website is www.theplasticbottlescompany.com, and the telephone number is 01229 588 or if you want to speak to the sales team via email, it's sales@the-bbc.com. We work Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. The warehouse is open from 8:30 till 4:30 because we do get people coming to collect from us. And there's always a happy welcome, and as Helen says, kettle's always on.
Great. Okay, we'll put those links into the notes, and thanks to you both for being with us on the podcast today.
Fab.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thanks for the opportunity to put our side of plastic myths across.
Thanks for your time, Joe.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.